Hey everyone, and big thanks to Paul Bello, fine fellow, for sending over this fantastic article from LitRPG Reads.
Oh, yeah.
It's called Voicing Your D&D Character, Tips for Role-Playing Accents. And it honestly got me thinking about a recent game I was in.
Okay.
We had this player, super shy usually,
Right.
but they decided to go all in on a boisterous halfling rogue with a thick Irish accent.
Oh, wow.
And let me tell you, it transformed the whole game.
Really?
Suddenly, every interaction was hilarious.
Yeah.
Every deception was dripping with charm.
Uh-huh.
It was like watching a completely different person at the table.
That's awesome.
It really drove home the point that a well-crafted voice can add so much depth and personality to a character, you know?
Yeah, that's a perfect example of how voice acting can elevate the entire gaming experience. It's not just about mimicking an accent. It's about using your voice as a tool to embody the character, to make them feel real and relatable.
Yeah.
The article highlights this by pointing out how a distinct voice can instantly boost immersion, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Creating memorable moments that stick with everyone at the table.
Totally. And it's not just about accents either.
Right.
The article talks about how even subtle variations in tone, pacing, and delivery can have a huge impact. For example, a character who typically speaks in a slow, measured tone might suddenly raise their voice and speak quickly when they're angry or excited.
Oh, yeah.
Those shifts in vocal dynamics can really add to the drama and tension of a scene.
Absolutely. Think of it like adding a soundtrack to your character's actions.
Okay.
Just as music can heighten emotions and create atmosphere, so too can your voice.
I like that.
By varying your pitch volume and pacing,
Yeah.
you can emphasize key moments, build suspense, and even add a touch of humor.
Okay, but let's say you've decided to try an accent. I know a lot of players, myself included, get intimidated by the idea of doing an accent.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if they're not confident in their acting abilities.
Right.
What advice does the article offer for those of us who are a little hesitant to jump into the world of accents?
Yes. Well, the article offers a really reassuring perspective on this.
Okay.
It emphasizes that no accent is also a perfectly valid choice.
Interesting.
Sometimes, simply speaking clearly and with intention is enough to make your character stand out.
Makes sense.
But if you do want to try an accent, it suggests starting subtly.
Okay.
Don't feel like you need to go full-blown theatrical performance from the get-go.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like dipping your toes in the water before diving in head first.
Exactly.
But what about choosing the right accent? I've seen players agonize over this, worried about picking something that's either too over the top or too bland.
Sure.
Any tips on finding that sweet spot?
Well, the article stresses the importance of aligning the accent with your character's background, personality, and role in the party.
Okay.
It even gives some concrete examples.
Oh, perfect.
Let's say you're playing a haughty elf from a noble family.
Okay.
A refined, almost aristocratic accent might fit perfectly, but if you're a barbarian who spent their life in the wilds, a rougher, more guttural accent, or even just a subtle change in tone and pacing might be more appropriate.
I love that they highlight the importance of avoiding stereotypes, too.
Oh, for sure.
It's so easy to fall into the trap of using a generic pirate voice for every swashbuckler or a stereotypical Scottish accent for every dwarf.
Right, right.
The key is to do your research and find an accent that feels authentic and respectful to the culture or region you're trying to represent.
Exactly. And remember, the goal is to enhance the game.
Right.
Not to offend or make anyone feel uncomfortable.
Of course.
If you're unsure about an accent,
Yeah.
it's always a good idea to get feedback from your fellow players, especially those who might have more direct experience with the culture or region you're trying to portray.
So let's say you've chosen an accent and you're ready to start practicing.
Okay.
What are some practical tips for actually developing and improving your accent? Because let's be real, most of us aren't professional voice actors.
Yeah.
We need some actionable advice that we can actually use.
Well, the article actually offers a ton of practical tips that are surprisingly accessible.
Okay.
You can listen to native speakers in movies or podcasts.
Right.
Use language learning apps, even record yourself to analyze your progress.
I've found that recording myself is super helpful, even if it's a bit cringeworthy at first.
Sure.
You really start to pick up on those subtle nuances that you might not notice otherwise.
And don't underestimate the power of practice outside of game sessions.
Yeah.
Even short bursts of accent practice can help solidify those sounds and rhythms.
True.
You can practice while you're driving cooking,
Uh-huh.
or even just walking the dog.
Right.
The more you immerse yourself in the accent, the more natural it will become.
It's like learning a new language.
Exactly.
The more you use it, the more fluent you become.
Right.
But I think one thing that a lot of players struggle with is actually using the accent during gameplay.
Sure.
It's one thing to practice in private, but it's another thing entirely to bring that accent to the table and maintain it consistently throughout a session.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And the article acknowledges that this can be a challenge, especially if the accent isn't your natural way of speaking.
So any advice on how to avoid those awkward accent slip-ups and keep our characters sounding consistent?
Yeah.
Because I know I've definitely had moments where my accent has completely abandoned me mid-sentence.
One of the key tips the article emphasizes is to start subtly and gradually increase the intensity as you get more comfortable.
Okay.
You don't need to go full-blown accent from the moment you sit down at the table.
Right.
Ease into it, get a feel for how it flows in the context of the game,
Yeah.
and allow yourself to adjust and refine it as you go.
That's a great point. It's about finding that balance between pushing yourself and staying within your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
But what about when things get really intense, like during combat or a high-stakes role-playing encounter?
Yeah.
Is it okay to let the accent slip a bit if it means being able to communicate clearly and effectively?
The article addresses this directly, suggesting that context is key. You might simplify the accent during combat to make sure your commands are clear.
Makes sense.
Then go all in during an emotional role-playing scene where the nuances of the accent can really shine.
Yeah.
It's about using the accent as a tool to enhance the storytelling, not to hinder it.
I think that's a really important distinction to make.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about being a perfect mimic. It's about using your voice to bring your character to life in a way that serves the story and enhances the enjoyment of the game.
Precisely. And remember, even the most experienced voice actors make mistakes.
Sure.
The key is to not let those slip-ups derail you.
Right.
Just laugh it off, acknowledge it, and move on.
Huh.
The more you relax and embrace the imperfections, the more fun you'll have with it.
Speaking of fun, I think it's important to remember that D&D is ultimately a game, and games are supposed to be enjoyable.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So while research and respectful representation are crucial,
Huh?
I think it's also okay to embrace a more playful approach to accents, especially if it adds to the humor and lightheartedness of the game.
Absolutely. The article even suggests that a slightly exaggerated accent can sometimes enhance the entertainment value of the game,
Oh, Willie.
especially if it's done in a way that's clearly meant to be fun and not offensive.
I see.
It's all about reading the room, understanding the tone of the game, and being mindful of your fellow players' comfort levels.
And on that note, I think it's a good time to move on to the next part of our deep dive, where we'll delve into some more advanced techniques for creating truly unique and memorable character voices.
Yep.
But before we do, I just want to say, it's funny how a simple thing like an accent can open up so many possibilities for a character.
Right.
It's like you're adding another dimension to their personality, giving them a unique voice that sets them apart from everyone else at the table.
It's true. And the article takes this concept a step further by talking about the idea of creating a signature voice.
Oh, yeah.
Something that goes beyond just an accent and truly captures the essence of your character.
Yeah, I found that section particularly intriguing.
It's like, okay, you've nailed the accent now. How do you take it to the next level?
Right.
How do you make it truly memorable and distinct?
The article suggests focusing on things like speech patterns, catchphrases, and unique pronunciations.
Okay.
For instance, maybe your character speaks in short, clipped sentences.
Right.
Or they have a habit of ending every statement with a particular phrase.
Yeah.
Think about how those little quirks can add depth and personality to their voice.
It's like those characters in movies or TV shows that you can instantly recognize just from the way they speak. They have those little vocal trademarks that make them so iconic and memorable.
And the best part is these vocal nuances can often emerge organically as you play the character.
Oh, really?
You might start with a general idea,
Yeah.
but then as you get deeper into the role-playing, you discover these little quirks and habits that just feel right for the character.
It's like you're uncovering hidden layers of their personality through their voice.
That must be so rewarding as a player, to feel like you're truly inhabiting the character and bringing them to life in a way that feels authentic and spontaneous.
It's incredibly rewarding, and it speaks to the power of collaborative storytelling in D&D.
Yeah.
It's not just about what's written on the character sheet.
Of course.
It's about the choices you make as a player and how you bring those choices to life through your performance.
Speaking of performance, the article also touches on the idea of using accents to enhance storytelling.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about sounding different. It's about using your voice to create dramatic tension, emphasize key moments, and even build suspense.
Absolutely. A well-timed pause, A sudden shift in volume or a subtle change in tone can have a huge impact on the emotional weight of a scene.
For sure.
Imagine a character who normally speaks in a boisterous, confident tone suddenly whispering a secret with a hint of fear in their voice.
Okay, yeah.
That contrast can create a powerful moment of suspense and intrigue.
It's like those moments in a movie where the music swells and the camera zooms in, drawing your attention to a crucial detail.
Right.
You can achieve a similar effect in D&D by using your voice to highlight key moments and guide the emotional arc of the story.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is you don't need to be a professional voice actor to pull this off.
Right.
It's about being aware of the power of your voice
Yeah.
and using it intentionally to enhance the storytelling experience.
It's about treating your voice as an instrument, playing with its nuances and dynamics to create a richer and more immersive experience for everyone at the table. Now, earlier we touched on the importance of avoiding stereotypes when choosing an accent.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth revisiting this topic in a bit more depth because it's something that can be tricky to navigate even with the best of intentions.
You're absolutely right. It's a sensitive topic and one that requires careful consideration and a commitment to respectful representation.
For sure.
The article stresses the importance of doing your research,
Sure.
understanding the historical and cultural context of the accent you're attempting,
Yeah.
and being mindful of the potential impact your portrayal might have on others.
It's not just about avoiding the most obvious stereotypes. It's about digging deeper and challenging your own assumptions about different cultures and accents.
Right.
Because sometimes even well-intentioned portrayals can perpetuate harmful stereotypes if we're not careful.
Exactly. It's about being open to feedback, being willing to adjust your approach if you receive constructive criticism, and recognizing that the learning process is ongoing. We all have blind spots, and it's through open dialogue and a willingness to learn from each other that we can create a more inclusive and respectful gaming environment.
And I think that's a perfect segue into a broader discussion about the role of empathy and respect in D&D.
Okay.
Because ultimately it's about creating a shared space where everyone feels safe and comfortable to explore their creativity and imagination.
Right.
And that starts with treating each other with kindness and understanding.
I couldn't agree more. D&D at its heart is a collaborative storytelling experience.
Yeah.
And that collaboration should be built on a foundation of mutual respect and a genuine desire to create something special together.
It's about recognizing that we all come from different backgrounds, have different experiences, and bring different perspectives to the table. And it's those differences that enrich the game and make it so dynamic and engaging.
Beautifully put. It's about celebrating those differences, embracing the diversity of voices and perspectives,
Right.
and using that collective energy to create something truly magical.
And speaking of magic, I think it's time to move on to the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore some of the more philosophical and artistic aspects of character voices.
I'm intrigued. What hidden depths are we about to uncover?
You know, as we wrap up this deep dive into character voices, I keep thinking about something the article touched on, the idea that a character's voice is like a fingerprint.
Unique and revealing.
Exactly. It's not just about the accent or the tone. It's about those subtle nuances, those tiny inflections that make a voice truly distinctive.
It's like the way a painter uses brushstrokes to create texture and depth. Each vocal choice adds another layer to the character's portrait, making them feel more real and three-dimensional.
I think that's what makes voice acting in D&D so fascinating. It's this blend of technical skill and artistic expression.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the mechanics of voice production, but also about tapping into your intuition and allowing the character to emerge organically.
It's like a dance between the conscious and the subconscious.
Right.
You have your initial plan, your idea of how the character should sound, but then as you start to inhabit the role, you discover these unexpected nuances and quirks that just feel right.
And those happy accidents are often the things that make a character truly memorable.
Oh, for sure.
It's like those moments in a jazz performance where the musicians improvise and create something spontaneous and beautiful in the moment.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the things that sets D&D apart from other forms of storytelling. It's this collaborative art form where the players and the dungeon master are constantly feeding off each other's energy, building on each other's ideas, and creating something truly unique and unexpected.
It's like a jam session where everyone contributes their own instrument, their own voice, to create a symphony of sound and story.
Yeah.
And the character voices are just one part of that rich tapestry.
Speaking of symphonies, the article talks about using vocal dynamics to create a sense of drama and tension.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about maintaining a consistent accent.
Right.
It's about using your voice to guide the emotional flow of the story.
Right. like a composer using different instruments and tempos to create a specific mood or atmosphere.
Yeah.
You can do the same thing with your voice by adjusting your volume, pitch, and pacing to match the intensity of the scene.
Imagine a tense negotiation where the characters are trying to strike a delicate balance between diplomacy and intimidation. The subtle shifts in their voices, the way they emphasize certain words or pause for effect, can create a palpable sense of tension and uncertainty.
It's like watching a game of poker, where the player's expressions and body language betray their true intentions. You can achieve a similar effect in D&D by using your voice to convey those unspoken emotions and subliminal messages.
And the best part is you don't need to be a master of vocal technique to pull this off.
Yeah, it's true.
It's more about being aware of the power of your voice and using it intentionally to enhance the storytelling experience.
It's about being present in the moment, listening to your fellow players and responding to the cues and prompts that emerge organically from the game.
It's about embracing the collaborative nature of D&D and trusting that the story will unfold in unexpected and delightful ways if you're open to the possibilities.
You know, as we're talking about all this, I'm reminded of a quote from the article.
Oh, yeah.
Something about how a well-crafted voice can transport you to another world.
When a character's voice truly resonates, it's like stepping through a portal into their heart and mind.
Yeah, that's the one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about D&D. It's this incredible blend of imagination, storytelling, and shared experience.
Mm-hmm.
And the voices we choose for our characters are just one of the many threads that weave together this magical tapestry.
It's a testament to the power of human creativity and the endless possibilities that emerge when we come together to tell stories and share our passions.
Well said. I think that's a beautiful note to end on. A huge thank you to Paul Bellowfine Fellow for sending us this inspiring article from LitRPG Reads.
Yes, absolutely.
It's given us so much to think about and discuss.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of character voices. We hope you found it insightful and perhaps even a little bit inspiring.
Before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
We talked a lot about the technical aspects of voice acting, but ultimately it all comes down to one simple thing: having fun.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Don't be afraid to experiment, to play around with different voices and accents, to let your imagination run wild.
Embrace the silliness, the awkwardness, the sheer joy of bringing your characters to life in your own unique way.
And remember, even if your accent isn't perfect or your vocal range isn't operatic,
Right.
the most important thing is that you're enjoying yourself and contributing to the shared storytelling experience.
For sure.
So go forth, intrepid adventurers, and let your voices be heard. And if you have any thoughts or stories about memorable character voices from your own D&D games, we'd love to hear them. Leave a comment below and tell us about those voices that made you laugh, cry, or cheer.
Until next time, happy adventuring.